Good afternoon. Chris Lee of Southeastern 16, joined by Jay Greeson as we talk about Auburn's win over Ole Miss. Our guys, Blake and Max, are in the arena right now where the internet service, good luck doing that and doing a live stream. So you're left with us for the time being since we're doing this from home. Also joining us, Bo Jackson, who you can hear snoring in the background.
He partied himself. He slapped into a nap after Auburn held on in the end to advance over Ole Miss.
Jay, your initial thoughts. Auburn has beaten Ole Miss 62-57. Give me your biggest takeaways or observations from this one.
Well, I think you can really go glass half full, glass half empty as an Auburn fan. In both of them make a whole lot of sense. Glass half full, you've got the best low post player in the country in Janai Broome, and you get into a slugfest game over the next when you got to win 6 to get to your ultimate goal, and it's a 4-point game with 3 minutes to go. You can throw the ball down low, and if he goes over the right shoulder, it is almost always money in the bank with that little left-handed baby hook off the window. And he's also your leader in assists, and he kicks out to a bevy of wide open threes. So it is a tremendous half-court advantage for an Auburn team that is both deep and defensive minded. But if you're a glass half empty guy, you can't regress to the means and expect your opposition to go 4 of 23 from deep the way Ole Miss did today and walk away unscathed, because you've now only got 2 more days of mulligans. And Auburn's in the tournament. This, I think, in my mind, secures Auburn a 1 seed when you talk about just the bevy of quad 1 victories they've now accumulated. And so the hay is in the barn. You want to win the SEC title, but the Auburn season will be ultimately remembered, as great as this 3-month ride has been, over the next 3 weeks. And that is the nature of this sport. It's the unpredictability of the sport. It is the most entertaining way to choose a champion and the worst possible way to crown a worthy champion. And I'll stand by both of those statements, saying that I love to watch every single minute of it. But if you think your team's the best team in the country, it's the biggest crapshoot way to determine a champion in all of major team North American sports.
Well, you're right. And by the way, Auburn, has got the number 1 seed locked up. I think they had it well before today anyway. But the thing that I like about Auburn is it can just win in so many ways. Like, that was a slow-paced game today. I don't know if that was just the plan for both teams, knowing, hey, maybe we don't need to go breakneck speed if we want to win this thing, especially if you're Ole Miss, or if it was just the defense was that good. But whatever the case, it was a slower-paced game. You've now seen Auburn, win a fast-paced shootout with Alabama within the last month. They did lose. I guess you could say if there's a little bit of a blueprint, A&M slowed it down, beat them, 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was last week at this point. I'm losing track of things. But you've now seen Auburn win multiple games. Like, they can win a fast-paced game. They can win a slow-paced game. They can win when the threes aren't falling. They've won without Janai Broome. It is a crapshoot, but I feel like Auburn feels like one of the more, how do I put it, sure things that you'll see in the tournament, just because of all the things they have and all the kinds of games that Auburn has won now.
See, and the best sports corollary I can go to this is when we're trying to handicap golf majors. All right, guys who go to a U.S. Open course where you're going to have to hit at 330, you can eliminate half the field. Guys who are tremendous putters where you can eliminate half the field. Auburn's got every club in its bag. You want to go 10 deep with them, they're happy to do it. You want to play 94 feet with them, they're happy to do it. You want to try to isolate them in the half court, they've got not only the best half court option in the sport in Janai Broome that we just talked about, but I heard a great stat today from Billis that they hold the opponents to like 40% below their season average on assists, which means in the half court, They make you make really tough shots and turn you into a one-on-one basketball team. And then you look and you take a step back to your sure thing analogy. Texas A&M is maybe the only team that's not going to be on the overwhelming number of brackets to get to an Elite Eight or a Final Four that had the opportunity to beat Auburn this year. Florida, Alabama, and Duke, everybody's expecting to be there to that Sunday before the Final Four.
Yeah. Back to the game for a minute. I think if you're Auburn, like the two guys you didn't want to beat you were Malik Dia and Sean Padula. Dia was 3 of 11, and Auburn's got so much size that in athleticism, you can stick a mobile, beefy guy on him and kind of shut him down, and that's what happened today. I didn't realize Padula ended up scoring 12 points. It felt like less than that, but the thing that you said was assists. Ole Miss had 6 assists today. Padula didn't have any of them. 6 of 13 from the field. I thought they made his looks very difficult. Auburn's a very tough team to get to the hole on because of its size and its beef underneath. And I think if you're Bruce Pearl, was it the best game Auburn's played this year? No. But you say, all right, if we're going to lose this game, how do we lose it? And you're probably thinking, well, either Malik Dia or Padula go off on us today. Neither of those happen. And that assist number, I'm glad you said that. That really resonates because buckets were tough to get today, and he is the guy that's dishing them out when they're getting them.
Well, and they did a really good job, and I know it's not exactly Ole Miss's forte, but other than a couple of real lazy passes that turned into transition buckets kind of late as Ole Miss turned a 10-point lead back into a competitive basketball game, Ole Miss had to work for everything in a half-court set. It was high pick and rolls. It was great defense, team man defense that they switched. And when you're as athletic and versatile as Auburn is defensively, I mean, Padula is looking to get in a traditional center off a screen, not a 6'9" Janai Broom or not a 6'7" Chad Baker-Mazara, who have close to the same foot speed and enough length that it's going to affect just about any shot he's going to want to take. And, I mean, Auburn forced some bad looks. Janai Broom fading away is not the best part of his game. But all things considered, nobody grades style anymore. The only numbers that matter are the ones when the horn sounds. So nobody's looking to the Russian judge for a 9.6 because you stuck the landing. This now is an ends meet the middle sum of the parts game.
I want to circle back to Janai Broom in a minute because I want to have the National Player of the Year conversation. But I thought the big thing today was that Chad Baker-Mazara only gave him 7 points, got 4 fouls. But as ESPN pointed out, he had 6 assists. He figured out a way to pitch in and help them. Man, the only other double-figure score they had was Denver Jones today. We know Auburn could shoot the eyes out of the 3 on a good night. 6 of 21. Again, I just look at it and I say that was a team found a way to win is overdoing it because when Broom goes 23 and 15, I guess a better way to put it is you had guys that have had bigger games than they had today, several of them, but they found a way to contribute.
And just for the sake of conversation, they did find ways to contribute, but you have to wonder down the stretch where they ended the regular season with back-to-back losses. And yes, those were explainable. They had just won in Rupp for the first time in almost 40 years. That had clinched the SEC regular season title. Then you lose at A&M, and then you really lose a war with your in-state rival in overtime because Mark Sears made an unbelievable bucket at the Horn. I mean, that's not a loss. It is a loss. I'm not trying to apologize anything away. That was just you drew the short straw in a hell of a basketball game. But yeah, I also am worried as an Auburn graduate. This is going to be the biggest moment of Miles Kelly's basketball career. This is going to be the biggest moment of a young Tahad Pettifor's basketball career. This is going to be the biggest moment for a lot of these guys. And they're going to hear for the next week from this Friday to next about what happened in round one last year. And the pressure of, all right, it's now put up or shut up time, because all of the call me stuff and the celebration on the sideline at Rupp and all that stuff is fine, well, and good when you're enjoying a historical run for your program and in a season that Auburn basketball's never seen, and I don't know if we'll ever see again. But now the pressure has to be felt in that locker room, and I think they were tight, especially early, settling for bad and deep threes, not really running much of an offense. And, I mean, the stakes are only going to ratchet up from this point moving forward. So how these guys and how quickly they can become comfortable, I think, is going to be a measuring stick and going to be a big responsibility of what Bruce Pearl, how he prepares them and gets them ready for this next, what could be, I'm not going to say could be, it will be a memorable 3 weeks, either for going the full 3 weeks or coming up short for it. But it'll be memorable either way for Auburn and its fans.
I want to ask you for a minute. You just mentioned last year. We know about the Yale loss. We know the Chad Baker-Mazara ejection early in the game. The old saying, don't let a crisis go to waste. I mean, it feels like that's a little insurance against being overconfident when Auburn gets to the tournament, because Bruce Pearl can hammer that to them left and right. And you remember, and I'm sorry to bring this team up for Auburn fans, but Virginia, the year after UMBC beats it, they get the whole thing the next year. And I'm just wondering if, not that if you're Auburn, of course you would like to go back and change what happened last year, but I wonder if it's very useful for Auburn in this spot, in the year in which they just ran roughshod over most teams in maybe the best league we've ever seen.
I think without hesitation, it is not only usable. I think the Auburn kids are going to hear about it every day from now until they turn the jerseys in. And I also think, and I thought it was very interesting today, and I had not heard or read this go until I noticed it at 1:00. But Chad Baker-Mazara got thrown out of the Alabama game for a flagrant 2. My daughter, who has watched every Auburn basketball game, as I've told you on multiple shows, I'm a little worried that the Tennessee Department of Childhood Services is going to come arrest me for raising her an Auburn fan, because it's going to be a lifetime of disappointment and frustration. But she watches every game, and the first words out of her mouth were, Chad's ejection really hurt. And I said, absolutely it did. And so Chad didn't start today. And I thought that was quite telling. And Bruce admitted, yes, he and I had a conversation about it, and we're just going to keep that between us. I think I'm certain of my soul Bruce made it quite clear, because Auburn has a whole lot of constants. Denver Jones is a tremendous perimeter defender. Dylan Cardwell is an outstanding glue guy who I would not want to shoot fish in a barrel. Janai Broome is a lead pipe certainty. But the ceiling guys, the swing guys on what is going to be, whether it's going to be a historic season or a disappointing one, is Miles Kelly from the perimeter and Chad Baker-Mazara emotionally. And if Bruce Pearl can engineer those two guys in a positive direction, then they're set up for great things.
Jay, I'll let you tend to your dog for a minute. I do have a player of the year question. My 11-year-old son is on spring break and religiously watches basketball with me. I mean, he is about as big a fan of it as I am. And he said to me as he's watching the game today, he's like, Dad, Janai Broome's got 20 double-doubles or whatever the number is. Cooper Flagg's got 2 or 3 or whatever the number is. Like, how is the player of the year? In other words, basically you're saying, how is it a conversation? And I think that might be overdoing it a little bit. And I know Cooper Flagg is a generational talent who had a really good run-up of publicity before they ever, tipped it off for the first time this year. But my goodness, the numbers, what Broom's done, the playing hurt, and it's who you did it against too. I mean, Duke
Should
goes
matter.
weeks without playing an NCAA tournament caliber team. Auburn does it twice every week. I'm just
Well,
very curious how this is going to settle. I know that I'm biased in this because I've been watching him all year and what he means to this team. A lot more. Not that I haven't seen Cooper Flag play, but I'm not watching him like I'm watching Broom. And I'm just going, come on, what you did it, who you did it against has to matter, right?
well, you would think so,
Yeah.
and it. I think the strongest argument for Janai is if we did a blind taste test on this and took the name on the front of the jersey, because if we're going to pretend like that doesn't matter when half of ESPN's college basketball talking heads wore the same jersey Cooper Flag did, and that's just Billis and Williams and all of these guys who, I mean, and that's fine. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Half of their college football rotation guys played in the SEC. I mean,
Yeah.
you're producing a whole lot of the bigger name stars, and that's part of how you get to Bristol in those type of positions. But if you put this scientifically, two guys, player A, and listed his numbers and who he did it against, and player B, and I mean, because who they did it against, in my mind, absolutely should matter. And because did you hear what Nate Oates said in the press conference in one of the press conferences this week? He was asked about schedule and how much it should matter.
Yeah.
He goes,
That one.
We've beaten more top 10 opponents in the last 5 days in the last 5 games than Duke's played all year.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, we've heard about Cooper Flag since he was a junior in high school. We heard about Cooper Flag being the best player on a team full of NBA guys that was scrimmaging against the Dream Team. Cooper Flag has turned in a litany of unbelievable highlights in front of the Cameron Crazies. And all Janai Broom does is go out there and turn over his right shoulder and bank in 8-footers. And you look up and he's 22 and 15. And in my mind, he's a runaway player of the year choice, but it's a complete and total coin flip. And I would not be surprised if it is Cooper Flag.
Well, and I get that Cooper Flag can do a little bit everything, but hey, you know, and Janai Broom's not the ball handler that Flag is. I get it, but man, he's an amazingly versatile player. He's a fantastic passing big man. He steps out and shoots threes, all kinds of stuff. And here we go. We're getting some stuff thrown at ESPN here. And I just for the record, I don't know what ESPN's motivation would be here. I mean, they do have the SEC, you know, every game, so it's not like it goes against their financial motivation. But I will tell you this: I didn't used to believe in those kind of things until I got in the media, and you see certain things happen here and there, stories killed, whatever. So I'm not going to dismiss that out of hand. I don't know what the motivation would be though, but I just think that to me, if it's close, you've got to give it to the guy that played the tougher schedule, right?
Well, I also think there needs to be some clarity in these awards. If you're going to say the Naismith Player of the Year, the guy who had the best year, okay. If you're going to say if it's the Naismith guy we would pick first player, even if you were going to say it's the college basketball MVP, because see, I can make an argument that Shohei Ohtani is going to be the MVP he should be the MVP for the next decade solid because he's filling 2 roster spots. And if in the definition of value, then okay. If you're going to tell me it's the most outstanding player, or if you're going to tell me it's the statistically best player, maybe those aren't two the exact same things. And if you're not giving clarity to the voters and you're letting them hedge bets and for a lack of a better word, change agendas or fit narratives, then that's on the process as much as it's on the people within the process.
Yeah. Zach, a regular here. This man is a machine of super chats. Gonna answer his question. Did Auburn lock up the number 1 overall seed? With the win today, I would answer that differently. I think Auburn locked up the number 1 overall seed maybe February 26th when it beat Ole Miss, or maybe March the 1st when it beat Kentucky. I think it was getting that regardless of what happened in this tournament. I mean, the body of work is incredible.
The body of work it's extraordinary, and especially when you consider not only how historically great this conference was, but Auburn's non-conference was just relentlessly brutal. Houston, Iowa State, Duke at Duke. I mean, it was Zach, the short answer to your question is yes, I do think they locked up the overall 1. I think the wrinkle effect here was, even if they had lost, I think Auburn was going to Atlanta regardless and be the 1 seed in the South, which behooves its fan base. And I think Duke was going to be the 1 seed in the East, which behooves a lot of its fan base. And they could have said either one, both would be happy, and either could feel like the 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Let's flip ahead a little bit. We'll be off here in just a couple minutes. Texas and Tennessee is just tipped off. Who you like here?
I like Tennessee big, comfortably. I can't think of a team you want to play less with a little bit of tired legs, playing your 3rd game in 3 days and coming off a double overtime game, than a Rick Barnes defensive team that's going to guard you at that type of length with that type of man-to-man pressure, and they're fresher than you. And it's gonna be, I mean, a 70-30 Tennessee crowd in Nashville. So I think Tennessee handles this one pretty comfortably, and we'll get another Barnes-Pearl war in the first semifinal on Saturday.
Well, it's two things that are – first of all, the case for Texas is that SEC teams in must-win situations the last couple of weeks, including this event, are off the charts winning right now. A lot of people think Texas needs another one, and frankly, with a lot of other bubble teams out there with ball to play, you'd have to be very nervous and maybe think Texas is on the outside looking in. If it can't get one today, potentially, depending on what happens other places. That's complicated, but I'm just saying Texas definitely is not going to sleep well if it loses today. Tennessee really, I mean, Tennessee's got something to play for too. Potentially a 1 overall, depending on how the committee values results in this tournament. They may have already locked it in and made up their minds, although I would think if Tennessee, say, won this thing and Alabama and Florida go out tonight, that might clinch it. So there's something to play for Tennessee.
To that point, as you're trying to think along with the committee, and they're not going to want to put too many 2s with SEC 1s in the same bracket.
Yeah.
The 2 line may be better there if you're Tennessee, and you could get 2 in the East or even 2 in the Midwest against a Houston team that you match up exceedingly well against.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or because if you're going to get the 1, you're going to get the 1 in the West, which is going to make it real hard on a fan base.
Yeah. Yeah. That fan base has had some expenses this year with traveling.
Ooh, brother,
between Omaha and Ohio State and football, all those games. Okay, yeah, and I think if you're Auburn, I think you'd rather see Texas because Tennessee is just so physical.
Yes.
I think you'd prefer not to have to play that game when you're turning around and playing the NCAA tournament, 6 or 7 days from now. Tonight, Florida, Missouri, who you got?
Florida comfortably. I think Florida's going to be the 1 in the West, and unless they win this tournament, and then I don't know what you do with Florida because Florida's playing as well as any team in the country right now. I don't know who, and really probably you can make a hard argument they have been since going to Neville Arena and winning at Auburn. But the thing that you take a step back, and what has really rounded out this roster was some hardships with some unfortunate multi-game couple of week injuries where some of their better players missed. They had to elevate some guys' minutes, and now Florida goes to the dance deeper and with a better trust 1 through 9 than I think Todd Golden would have ever expected.
Yeah, but Missouri's depth gives Missouri a chance. They can play 12, 13 guys. And, of course, we had what happened in Gainesville earlier, too. So
my betting hunch on both of these games tonight is I don't know if you can set a total that I would not bet over on Alabama, Kentucky, and Missouri, Florida.
All right, I want to hear your over-under on this one. Central time that Kentucky and Alabama ends tonight.
Oh, Central time. Well, Florida, Missouri's going to go longer, which means it starts at 8:30 or scheduled to start at 8:30. Give me a 9 tip. I'm going to go 11:47.
Yeah.
Go over under Central time, which is way past my bedtime over here in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah. I might take the over.
Yeah. Well, the over under is staggering. It's at like 179. And the highest I've heard of in like 20 plus years was actually, believe it or not, a Virginia game in the early 2000s when Pete Killian was coaching there, and the over under was set at like 183, 184.
Yeah. Goodness. That is hard to believe. Yeah, Kentucky, Alabama tonight ought to be a dandy. I would, based on the way that Mark Pope talked last night, pretty sure you're not having any Lamont Butler tonight. That's going to make it tougher against Alabama team. They'll get out and run. But, hey, Kentucky can, on the right night, can trade baskets with anybody. So I think we get 3 terrific games tonight, Jay.
And
including the one going on now.
Make certain the batteries in your remote are up to speed, because you also got a little baseball tilt in Knoxville tonight too.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching baseball on one TV and basketball on another one tonight. Speaking of which, got a baseball show tonight. We'll do a live stream sometime between either 9:30 or 9:45, so watch for that. I'll be joined by Graham and Alfred. A couple more basketball notes. If you're interested in the SEC in terms of potential bid steals, because you're watching that. Like, if things went just completely haywire, you're talking about Texas, Vandy, Arkansas, maybe Oklahoma all being affected. I think it's a long shot, but just throwing this out here to cover it. What do you want to watch is the 5 potential bid steals. 1, if anybody wins the American other than Memphis. A-10, if it's not VCU. If North Carolina wins the ACC. Big West, if anybody other than UC San Diego or possibly UC Irvine wins it, that could be a bid steal, depending on whether UC San Diego would be an at-large. And then you got the Mountain West. You got 4 teams right there that are bubble in or a little better or bubble out. And so I think if you're an SEC team, sweating it out, and who knows what the committee's thinking. New Mexico's probably the team you want to see win there. Anyway, Jay, parting thoughts before I let you go.
I think the SEC after today will have 2 1s and 2 2s. That's not going too far out on a branch, but I'll go ahead and I'm going to book 14 SEC teams in the dance. I think everybody on the bubble ends to the good.
I'm hoping you're right. We will find out soon enough. I'm sure we're going to have probably another stream or 2 tonight for basketball. Potentially, we've got baseball coming tonight, and of course, we'll be with everybody on Selection Sunday. So thank you for watching us today. Again, if you wonder where Blake and Max are, they are not gone. They're just at the arena where they're watching this game. And again, trying to broadcast from that place, just between the connection and the space is next to impossible. So that's why you get me and not those guys this week. But anyway, thank you for watching. For Jay Greeson, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you. Have a great night. Thanks for watching Southeastern 16's basketball content.